Discover the depth of faith beyond the pews. More Than a Sunday. I'm so glad that you're joining us for this episode of More Than a Sunday. It's a brand new season. It's called Legacy Lives On, where we're talking about all of those people in Faith Church's history that have made a very deep impact. And today, we're talking about a guy who is a trumpet player. He also had 3 children, and he directed the Faith Church choir. You might have heard of him. His name is Merle Wahlstrom. I am so excited to be discussing his legacy today. Now, in the Bible, in Hebrews chapter 11, it's called commonly the Hall of Faith. And that's because we read all about these people from the Old Testament who did a lot of incredible things. We're talking about Noah and Abraham and Sarah. And we read all about their legacy, and it's all this hall of faith. And for this season, we are walking through Faith Church's Hall of Faith. So we're starting with Merle Wahlstrom. I am joined today by Audrey VanVuren. Audrey, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell me about your connection to Merle Wahlstrom?
I am the oldest daughter of Merle and Marilyn Wahlstrom. And like Allie said, we had 3 kids. I had a brother, Andrew, and a sister, Ann. And I grew up in Faith Church from the very beginning. So,
wow, I'm glad you're here. And we also have Kim Detmar. Hey, Kim.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Tell me about your connection to Merle Wahlstrom.
Grew up in the church with them, and our families were friends.
Okay.
So I've known Audrey and their family forever.
Wow.
Seems
Very
like
long time.
So,
yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And your mom, she was in the choir, is that right?
My mom was in the choir, but my mom used to sing with her dad, and her dad was in a quartet also.
Okay.
So, yeah, just on and off over the years, they would sing together, and you know, with the choir. My mom was in the choir, so.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Tell me about this choir a little bit. So would it be like on special occasions, or was this a Sunday morning worship thing? Fill me in.
the choir sang every Sunday morning, would bring the church to worship. So,
Wow. Okay.
yep. And then in the evenings, it was more of a special music type thing. So there were all different people that would share their gifts and talents that they had for the Lord to worship on the Sunday evening service. So.
Interesting. So in the beginning, we're going all the way back. How did Merle get connected to Faith Church?
It was in 1963 that they began building a home in South Holland, and we were from Roseland, and they decided that they wanted to find a church that was closer to our home in South Holland rather than going back to church in Roseland. So they had heard about the church that First Reformed Church had begun, and it was meeting in the McKinley School gymnasium.
Okay.
And they decided to visit, and they really enjoyed it, and they decided to make that their home church.
Wow. So it all began, wanted a closer church. So then that led to some involvement at Faith Church.
It was shortly after that Willard Altoff, who was that time the chairman of the elder board, knowing that my dad had some musical ability and also experience directing choir, came to our home and asked him if he would be willing to direct the choir for Faith Church on a 6-month trial basis.
Okay.
And he was so happy to do it, and he ended up directing choir for 30 years.
Wow. 30 years. That's inspiring in itself. 30 years directing the choir. Whew. So he probably met a lot of people through that, right? Through bringing them to the choir.
Yes, they had, and there were several gentlemen in the choir that were also very gifted voice-wise, and they, together, 4 of them formed the Faith Quartet.
The Faith Quartet. Okay.
And they sang together for 20 years around in the Midwest area, so.
Do you, by chance, either of you, do you know who all was in the Faith Quartet?
Yeah, it was my dad and my Uncle Marv Anderson and Harvey Anker and Glenn Rietveld.
Wow. Okay. So all 4 of them kind of pillars in Faith Church's story.
Yep.
Very much so.
For sure.
Wow. Okay. Can you share just a couple stories about Merle? What was he like? How did he carry himself?
Well, my dad was a funny guy. He enjoyed making people laugh, and he just enjoyed a good laugh himself. And I can remember this one particular time. This happened to be the choir used to do a cantata a couple times a year.
Okay.
And so we'd been practicing for this cantata, and the night of the cantata, my father wasn't feeling well at all. And as the choir progressed up to the front, Carol Riedfeld took a pail and set it off to the side of the choir loft just in case my dad needed to use that pail.
no.
So thankfully he didn't have to use it, but that was he just kind of went with the flow of everything. So.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Did you say cantata?
Yeah, cantata. Yeah. Nobody ever probably knows what that is anymore.
No, what is a cantata? Can you describe a cantata for the people that may not know? Definitely not me, but someone who's listening that may not know what a cantata is.
Well, it's like a book of music
Okay, like
with all the songs and carries a theme through it. So we did one for Easter.
Okay.
We would do an Easter cantata when they have it all, centered around songs of Easter and
like
such.
a production, kind of.
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, it was for the honor and glory of God, obviously.
Yes,
but
right,
and to bring worship to the congregation. But yeah, it was the choir's chance to sing for the congregation. So
Okay. Anything else? What else? What did Merle go through in life? Anything else that you remember that you want to reminisce on?
well, my dad was actually his folks did not attend church when he was growing up. They sent him and his sister to Sunday school, but they themselves didn't go. And my father, and my aunt became very involved musically in their church. And at one point, my grandfather said, they're spending an awful lot of time, at this church. Let's go and see what's this all about.
Wow.
And that's how they started going to church.
Okay, so
His mom and dad.
So God used his musical gifts in Merle, his musical gifts to bring his parents to church.
Yep.
Wow. That's very, very, very inspiring. I think that if more people would kind of take that leap of faith and would kind of put themselves out there and use those gifts for God, it would change those around them. And that's a beautiful testament to what God will do with those. What about you, Kim? Any stories that you can remember?
He used to direct the kids choir too.
Okay.
So on Wednesday nights we would have catechism, right? That's what it was called.
Catechism. So
And
walk me
we
through
were in
catechism.
grade school, and so we would, part of the first gathering was the choir, the kids'
Okay.
choir.
Kids choir.
And I remember if you came down there with gum in your mouth, he would have you, and he saw that, he would have you take it out and stick it under the chair to get it out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And I do believe we had to clean the chair
yeah.
up afterwards.
Yeah, right. But he would.
Yeah, if he saw you chewing gum, and it was just something I always remembered. He didn't, when you were singing, he didn't want that gum in your mouth.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And he just made us laugh as we got older. We just, he just always had a smile on his face.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
What a beautiful memory of just always having a smile. And I think that's a great way, even when, I'm sure he walked through hard times just like the rest of us. I think when going through those hard times, being able to smile, being able to laugh through it, that's probably a huge advantage to working through some of the hardest things in life,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Be able to laugh.
And I know where he got his strength in his life. I can vividly remember as a young child coming down and seeing my dad sitting at the kitchen table reading his Bible. And I knew he did that every day, but just seeing it as a kid just made such an impact on me. And he just passed away last year, and my mom found in his Bible just a little piece of paper that he had written on that his greatest desire was that all three of his kids would know the Lord. Wow. And it was just written a little piece of paper in his Bible, but I know where his strength came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. To have that example and that encouragement and just the confirmation. I mean, he wrote that down. Wow. What an incredible testimony to who Merle was. Well, in Hebrews 11, we kind of land on the last two verses. At first, I'm not going to lie to you, it was confusing to me, but I did a little bit of digging. So the last two verses of Hebrews 11, verses 39 and 40, they say, so it's going through all these different people, and they're saying by faith what they did. And then it says, all these were approved through their faith, but they did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, so that they would not be made perfect without us. And I think that's the link. What we're talking about here, what we read about is Jesus is the perfect plan. And obviously there's still sin in the world, but one day we all will be united, and it's going to be a perfect world, and death will come to a complete stop, and he will fully restore the earth. And I love that that links us, because it's those people who are in Hebrews 11. It's your dad. It's us right now in 2024 and the future, right? And so it links all of us together, and it makes me think a lot about impact. And Merle clearly impacted people, but I love even just how he wrote in his Bible, my greatest desire is that my kids would know the Lord. So clearly he had a wide impact on multiple different people, but sometimes I think we get mixed up in how many people we can impact, and then we forget about the depth. And clearly Merle had a deep impact, especially on his 3 children, and the way that he was able to impact you so deeply. Now God is using those people he's impacted to impact even me. And I've never met him. I didn't know him personally, but his impact on you, on Kim, on her family, and multiple others, there's an impact there that's still affecting me today and will affect more people in the future at Faith Church. So I really, really think there's a beauty to remembering those people and how they carried themselves, that he smiled, that he laughed, that he would make us spit our gum out, and he was just a selfless guy. And I love that you have a vivid memory, and you can remember seeing him studying his Bible, and that's a beautiful, beautiful testimony to who he was. I want to get a little bit deeper into legacy. So when we talk about legacy, it can kind of be a hefty word of, oh man, how will I be remembered? What is legacy? So I was just curious, how would each of you define legacy? What does legacy mean to you?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. With Merle, you could see the joy of the Lord in him. I mean, anytime you saw him, just in his face when you saw him, there was always a smile, but there was just something in his look that you could just see the joy of the Lord in him.
Wow.
And that's what I remember about him.
Yeah,
you know,
that's his legacy.
I mean, besides just we would always smile and make us laugh.
Yeah.
But that's the main thing I remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe even sometimes it wasn't exactly what he was saying but it was how he was saying things, and it was his look and his face, his demeanor, how he carried himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. What about you? What is legacy? What does that mean to you?
I think it's everything that you do and say while you're here. And I just picture a beautiful sunset that you see, and the sun goes down, and the sky is still illuminated after the sun goes down. And I just think of now my father's gone, but yet to me, he still speaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
He's still
And he
making an
speaks, to his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. I'm just very grateful for God's faithfulness through generations.
Wow. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thinking about Merle personally, what would Merle want everyone to know?
I know what he would say. God is good all the time.
Yeah.
And put your faith and your trust in him.
Wow. That's incredible. You heard it. And I think we should let those words just sink in, that God is good all the time, even when we don't know. I love that that's what comes to mind when you think of him. Today, I wanted to ask the viewers, we want you to be part of the conversation. I wanted to ask you a question, and you can leave your answer in the comment section of this video, or you can send us a message on Instagram or Facebook. I have a question for you. If you were to think about what you're doing every day, how could your decisions right now impact your future legacy? How could your everyday decisions impact your future? What do you need to change right now, today, that is going to better your legacy in the future? And also, I am kind of curious. I don't know if this is the case or not, but maybe at some point in the future, we might do some type of a continued season. So personally, for you, who would make your Hall of Faith list? If you were coming up with names and people who have impacted you deeply, who would those people be to you? Send them to me through the messaging system, or you can leave a comment on this video. I would love to hear about who made a deep impact on your life. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we sign off?
No, this has been a joy to be here. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for
Pam.
having us, and it's fun to talk about the past.
It's
like
important,
that. And,
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It is so important to think about it and let it impact us. Let it inspire us.
Yeah.
This was truly inspiring for me. Thank you so much for sharing about your father and all the ways he impacted you and many others. Kim, thanks so much for being here and sharing about your experience. Please join us as we continue on in this season. There are some pretty interesting people that we're going to be talking about. You may or may not know about a few of them. They'll be coming up. You might recognize their names. I'm not going to give any away right now, but I'm really excited to sit here to talk about and reminisce about all of those people who have made a massive impact on Faith Church. Follow us on Instagram at We Are Faith Church. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, We Are Faith, and we will catch you next time on More Than a Sunday.